Um, so we are not yet part, we don't have a consortium yet, but we are in the process. We are taking all the baby steps. So essentially then, what I'll be talking about is what's going on in the country that is making it ripe for the development of a consortium. Now, when we talk about drivers of change, on campus, I don't know if libraries are the first units you would think about. But in Sierra Leone, that seems to be what's happening. So not only is a higher ed situation also at an inflection point, because we are at a point where I think what I call the 3 Rs of rebuilding, restructuring, if you like, realignment, but also a renewal. Because I think we all know the recent history of Sierra Leone and all what's been going on. I'm not going to belabor that. But INASP came to Sierra Leone in 2014, mid-2014, and I had just joined the University of Sierra Leone myself about 6 months before that. And so here we were just shortly after INASP came and all the joys of getting access to e-resources, then Ebola struck. So all the grand plans we had had to roll all of the initiatives out came to a screeching halt. And everybody was at our wits' end, no one knowing what to do with a fast evolving situation. Universities were kind of flapping about, what do we do? And the researchers that we have, mostly the College of Medicine, were out there in the field working with international partners or trying to get a handle on what was going on. Well, one of the things we found was that we weren't sure what Sierra Leonean researchers themselves were doing, what institution is doing what. And of course, this is the avenue that we found that libraries thought that we could just slip into that and try to fill some of the gaps. So, like for the learning materials that were created during, schools were closed, by the way, for over a year. So universities were trying to engage their students. So all the learning materials that were created and were disseminated electronically, we also had hard copies in the libraries for walk-ins. So the idea was all of this work that has gone into this, what do we do with it? So that was how the nucleus of a repository came about. And so that also fed into other e-initiatives. Well, what about e-journals, developing an e-journal platform? So even though Ebola has its obvious downsides, but it was also like a catalyst to get higher education moving in another direction. And libraries played a significant part in that. So there's a lot of research that's coming out at the moment, some ongoing. I'd probably just highlight a couple here. The first one, on women, girls, and the Ebola virus disease, a case study on its impact. Because you may also know that women were the most affected as primary caregivers, but also in the professional arena where most of the nurses were women. And also a lot of women were engaged in small businesses, and also so their economic livelihoods were also at stake. So that research is ongoing. And the last one is where University of Sierra Leone staff were involved in the testing of one of the vaccines, and they're in the process of writing up results. But lest we think that all research is just Ebola related, there's also a lot of other things happening, whether it's in rainwater harvesting technologies or small farmer yields and so on. The one in the middle, the second one, is one that I am more connected and attached to, not because I am in microfinance or anything, but I'm working directly with an emerging researcher who has found lots of information because of some of the workshops we've been doing, knowing that there's access to all of these resources we are getting through INASP. So what is the driving change? Now, libraries obviously are used to, we know where we were in the research process at the beginning, but we are kind of muscling our way into other environments and making ourselves more relevant to the whole, every kind of point along the research life cycle. So with small grants from INASP, we are holding academic writing workshops and teaming that with also the e-resources, introduction to e-resources workshops. We are really very pleased that libraries are taking a role, a more positive role in the research and promotion process. Because what we are now is, now we have access to resources. We can fact check all of those, trying to make sure that the journals that are cited on CVs and resumes are working and so on. And another good thing I want to highlight here is that AGIs are coming together. For example, there's now a consortium of vice chancellors and principals. We have a 7 institution consortium. So all of this is kind of making it possible to develop a library consortium. But with all of these resources that we're showing to our researchers, some of the positive aspects have been that, say, polytechnics, for example, have now have a requirement that in a 4-year cycle, researchers should have, there should be some evidence of research activity, whether ongoing research or production. So this is all part of the quality assurance that's happening. And so the possibilities are many, and sometimes people are scared, I guess, because one researcher asked me, "Were you showing us all of this? What happens? Is it going to go away?" So these are the kinds of questions we're looking at, and hopefully a library consortium and working with publishers would help with. And so there's a life without consequences. This is a line from the movie Courage Under Fire, Denzel Washington and Meg Ryan. Thank you.